Hi everyone, I'm Michael. In this video, I'm going to talk about OpenAI API. So here is the agenda. I'm going to talk about what is OpenAI API, some basic concepts, and then we are going to set up your development environment, and then we are going to try to send the first API request. Lastly, we are going to use the OpenAI Python library to call the OpenAI API. So let's get started. So what is OpenAI API or the ChatGPT API? So the OpenAI, as you know, that the large language model ChatGPT are hosted in the cloud. So if we want to integrate the large language model features into your own application, you have to integrate with its APIs. So here are some capabilities that OpenAI API can do. So it can generate text. For example, it can draft any documents like email for you or write any code for you. It can also answer questions based on any knowledge base. It can also generate images based on the text prompt or edit the image by replacing some areas. It can also do the speech recognition, like turn audio into text or vice versa, turn text into spoken video. And it can also do the moderation, like check whether the text is harmful or not. So here's some basic concepts of the large language model. So the user give prompts to the large language model, and the large language model predict the tokens for you. So what is prompt? Prompt is the input text that you send to the large language model. So it's like you program the large language model to instruct the model to do something for you. And then the large language model will output the tokens. So what are the tokens? So tokens are words or parts of the words. So for the large language model, it only sees the tokens instead of words. So for example, ChatGPT is great. It is encoded into 5 tokens, like chat, GPT is great. So there is one rough estimation that 100 tokens is about 75 words for English. So the large language model is charged using the tokens. So here I just list the ChatGPT, GPT-4 and GPT 3.5 Turbo. As you can see, the pricing for ChatGPT it's 3 cents for 1,000 tokens for input. For the output, 1,000 tokens will be 6 cents. And for GPT 3.5 Turbo, it's much cheaper. Okay, so here we are going to set up your dev environment. First, we make sure you install your Python on your computer. So whether you are using Mac or Windows, so if you are using Mac, you can just use the homebrew to install the Python by running the brew install Python on the terminal. Or if you are using Windows, you can download the installer from the Python website. So after you install the Python, you can check in your terminal by running the Python version to check. So I'm installing the Python 3, so the version is 3.12, which is the latest version. And then we are going to set up a virtual environment for the Python. So it's very highly recommended to install the virtual environment because it separates the environment your project is using with the environment that your computer is using. So you can, create the directory for your project by running mk directory my project, and then you can initialize the virtual environment by running python -m v env my environment, and then you have to activate the environment by running source or on Mac. So I have already installed the virtual environment on my Mac, so I just need to activate it. Here we go. And then we can install the OpenAI Python library by running pip install OpenAI. And also we are going to use the Jupyter Lab for running Python. So Jupyter Lab is an interactive Python environment that you can run Python code and see the output. And then we are going to create an OpenAI account for calling the API. So if you already have one, you don't need to do that. And then we need to generate the OpenAI API key. So go to this website. So since I already generated a one here, so you can, if you haven't generated a one secret key here, you can click on this button and give its name and create a new one. So after you create the key, you save it securely in your node, and then we are going to use it later. So on Mac OS, we can, store the API key in the ZShell config file. Like you go to your terminal and edit this file and put this export OpenAI API key in the ZSHRC file, and then you run the source to reload the shell configuration. So if you configure it like this, it works for all your projects on your Mac. So on Windows, it's a bit different. So you can follow these steps to add the environmental variable by adding the OpenAI API key. And there is another way that you add the API key just for your project. So in the directory of your project, you created one file called .env, and then you just put the OpenAI API key and replace your key here and save it. And make sure that you don't check the .env in your source control or the Git. So you need to add a line in your git ignore file to make sure the .env doesn't check into your source control. So here we are going to take the chat completion API for example. So the endpoint of the chat completion API is api.openai.com v1 chat completion. So here are the input parameters. For the model and the messages, these two are mandatory. So for the model, you can specify which model you are going to use, like GPT 3.5 Turbo or GPT-4 or other models like image generation, DALL-E 3, etc. And for the message, it's a list of message objects. So for each message, it has a row. So for the row, you can specify system, user, or assistant, or tool. For the content, it's the content of the message. For example, write me a beautiful poem. And for the temperature and max tokens, these two are optional. So for the temperature, it means the randomness of the response. So the higher value means the output will be more random. So if you ask the OpenAI to solve a technical problem like solve a algorithm, I think you need to set the temperature to a low value because you want it to be less random, right? But if you want to ask the GPT to do some creative stuff for you, I think you can set the value to be higher. And max tokens. So as you know that the OpenAI API is charged by tokens. So you can add the limitation to the output tokens to save cost. For in this case, you can specify the maximum number of the tokens that the API can be output. So for the messages, there are three types of messages. System, user, assistant, right? For the tool, we just it is used for function calling. We can ignore it for now. So for the messages, what is the system message? So system message will set the behavior of the assistant. Let's say if you want to the OpenAI to help you to solve the programming issues, you can set the GPT as a helpful programmer like this. So for the user messages, it's the user request messages. And assistant message. So there are two scenarios. So it can be used for store the previous messages that is outputted by the large language model, because for each conversation it doesn't remember the context. So if you want to provide the context to the large language model, you need to store the previous messages. The other scenario is that you can give some examples for the large language model to help you answer better questions. So here is one example in JSON format. Here is the request. So for the request, we set the model name to be GPT 3.5 Turbo, and here's the message. We just set the system message, and for the system message we set the behavior of the assistant. So here we just ask the GPT to convert the grammar to standard English. So here is another message, the user message. The content is, she now went to the market. So it seems this sentence is not grammarly correct. So we ask the GPT to correct the grammar for us. So here is the response. So for the response, there are many fields. For the object it's called chat complication, and here's the created timestamp, and also the model name that the ChatGPT is using, and the choices. This is the stuff we need to care about. Actually, it's the message contains in the choice object. So as you can see, to respond to the message row as assistant, and the content is, she did not go to the market. So as you can see, the ChatGPT corrects the grammar for us. And one field called finish reason, it is stop, which means the large language model finished the task. And here is the usage. So the usage is the token for this API request has used. So as you can see, the promote tokens, which means the input tokens. So here is all the input messages, and the complete tokens is this message, the output message. So the ChatGPT API is charged by input and also output tokens. So here is the OpenAI Postman collection. You can fork the Postman collection here. So I'm gonna show you in my Postman. So here is the endpoint. It's a post request, and in the body I put the JSON. So it's the example we just saw. And one thing you need to notice yet for the authentication, you have to set the API key here. You have to choose bear token and put the API key here. Otherwise, you would get the not authorized error. So we can try running this. So as you can see, the result is the same as we did in the slides. So let's go back to the slides. So next we are going to try to use the OpenAI Python library. So as I mentioned before, we are going to use Jupyter notebook. So we can try it in the terminal. Since I already installed the Jupyter notebook, I start it now. So firstly, we are going to read the local.env file, right? So first, we have to import the OpenAI library, and then also the OS. So here we load the .env file to read the API key, and then we initialize an instance of the OpenAPI. So the default value for the API key is the OS environment get OpenAPI key. So if the key is different, you define a different key, you can override this here. For my case, I just use the default one, so I just don't need to pass the environment value here. So next, we are going to send the request. So you can use the chat completions and create a request. And we pass the model. Here I'm using the GPT 3.5. And then for the messages, one is the system message. I set the behavior of the assistant. And then here is the user message. So we can run this. And see the response. So as you can see, the response is a chat completion object, and it has choices: finish, reason, stop, and chat completion message here. So we can print the message. So it's assistant message, and the content is she did not go to the market. Okay, next we are going to see another example. So here we use the same model but different messages. So for the behavior system message, we set you are helpful assistant, and for the user message, we ask who won the World Series in 2020. Let's see the results. So the result is a chat completion message object. Content is the Los Angeles Dodgers won the World Series in 2020. So based on this example, we add more messages. So as I mentioned before, for each conversation, the large language model didn't save the previous messages. So here we have to, put the previous message in the message list. So we have to put this assistant message here, and then we ask the large language model again, where was it played? Let's run this. The output message is the World Series in 2020 was played at Global Live, blah blah blah, Texas. So that's it. Let's go back to the slides. So we can also define a help function for us to call the OpenAI chat completion API. So we can set the method parameters, messengers, model, and temperature, and also max tokens. And then in this method, we just call the chat completion create by passing all the parameters. And then we return the message content. So we define the method here, and then we can define the message list, and then we call it. So the result should be the same, right? She did not go to the market. That's it for the demo. And then one more thing is the OpenAI playground. So for the playground, it's also a web tool for you to try all the APIs. So for example, you try the chat API, and we can enter the message, which we can try this example like this. System message, and then here is the user message here, and then we can choose the model. So I will keep it the GPT 3.5, and also you can set the temperature maximum tokens here, and then you can submit. As you can see, the assistant message, she didn't go to the market. And there are also some other features. You can also save this conversation or share it to others, and also you can view the code. So you can view the Python code, the message, user, and assistant. It also has a JavaScript code or JSON or code. You can just copy the code and try it in Jupyter Notebook. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you have not subscribed to this channel, please subscribe. Thank you very much.